Stop. Before I say anything else. Which month were you born? March? April? May? June? Then what I am about to tell you is not a general warning for everyone watching. It is not a teaching on Solomon's wisdom for the spiritually curious. It is specifically, precisely, architecturally about your bloodline. Solomon documented it in a text commissioned by his own royal court, written not as mystical literature, but as an administrative record, a royal catalogue, the way a general maps enemy positions before a campaign. And if you were born in the spring window, March 21st to June 21st, your position is in that catalogue. Your family's pattern is in there. The name of the entity that has been working against your line. Possibly for 3 or 4 generations, Solomon found it, interrogated it, and recorded the exact words that stop it. But I need to take you somewhere most people have never been inside this text. Not chapter 1. Not the 72 demons that scholars and occultists spend their careers on. Chapter 18. Different section, less famous, more precise. And I need to tell you how I found it, because the way I found it is the reason I have never taught this from a distance. I was in my 43rd year when I first read chapter 18. SOS, London, autumn of 2004. My doctoral supervisor had assigned me a seminar paper on Hellenistic Jewish demonology. He handed me McCown's 1922 critical edition of the Testament of Solomon, still the standard academic text, still the version cited at Princeton and Cambridge, and told me to focus on the opening sections. I read the assigned sections, and then I kept reading. Because there is a moment that happens when you are deep in a historical text, when you have gone past all the familiar material, past the parts everyone has already picked over, and you enter territory that feels like it has been waiting, undisturbed, like a room that has not been entered in years. The dust on the page still carries its original silence. Chapter 18 is that room. It contains a taxonomy of 36 demons, organized not by power, not by rank, not by the hierarchy that fascinated the Renaissance occultists, organized by the 10-degree divisions of the zodiac, the decans. The ancient world divided the celestial band into 36 segments of 10 degrees each. Every segment governs approximately 10 days of the year. Every human being born anywhere on Earth falls into one of those segments. Solomon, according to this text, interrogated all 36 entities assigned to all 36 decans, one by one, and his questions were always the same. What are you called? What is your effect? Who stops you? The answers he received and recorded are not metaphorical. They are clinical, specific as a physician's chart, detailed enough to be useful. I read through the first sections quickly. Then I slowed down, because I was approaching the spring window. And I realized 9 of the 36 demons are assigned precisely to this window. March, April, May, June. 9 entities across the Aries, Taurus, and Gemini decans. Then I checked my own birth month. Late May, Taurus, Gemini border. I stopped moving through the page. I had been studying Solomon's administrative record as a scholar for 15 years, and I had just found my own entry in the catalog. I am going to come back to what that meant for me personally. But first, let me show you what Solomon actually wrote about these 9, because the specificity of what is here will either fascinate you or stop you cold, and it should do both. Aries covers March 21st to April 19th. Solomon interrogated 3 entities assigned to this decan. The first is called Ruax. Solomon asked him, "What do you do?" The answer was precise. "I cause mental idleness. I make heads barren." Sit with that phrase for a moment. Not physical damage, not illness, mental barrenness. the inability to think with clarity, to focus in prayer, to sustain a thought through to resolution. The kind of heaviness that descends on the mind without an identifiable cause. The fog that was not there yesterday and is still there a year later. The inability to study, to plan, to produce what you know you are capable of. Ruax's specific assignment is to the Aries decan, which means in Solomon's administrative framework, every person born in early to mid-April carries a birth season relationship to this entity. The remedy Solomon recorded is exact. Not incense, not ritual objects, not oil or salt or water. 3 words spoken as a royal command. Michael, imprison Ruax. I am going to explain why the distinction between command and prayer matters enormously. But let me finish the taxonomy first, because you need to see the full picture before the framework makes complete sense. The second Aries demon is Barsaphael. His function, he sends migraine attacks. Recurring head pain. The remedy, Gabriel imprisoned Barsaphael. The third is Aratosael. He damages vision and harms the eyes, the instruments of spiritual and physical sight. The remedy, Uriel imprison Aratosael. Hold those 3 together. Ruax attacks the mind. Barsaphael attacks the head through pain. Aratosael attacks the eyes. The pattern is unmistakable. All 3 are aimed at the same region, the faculties of perception, focus, and spiritual sight. The instruments by which a person discerns what is true, what God is saying, what path leads forward. For those born in the Aries window, Solomon's taxonomy identifies a coherent attack strategy aimed at the same target. Now, before I continue, I want to acknowledge something directly. I have been studying ancient manuscripts for 35 years. I understand the skepticism. I have carried it myself. But here is the question I would ask you to hold before dismissing this. Is the pattern familiar? Not abstractly, specifically. In your family, in the people you know who were born in that window. Because Solomon was not writing fiction. McCown's 1922 critical edition is a scholarly text with extensive footnotes. The scholars who have devoted careers to this material at SOAS and Princeton are not naive people. They are engaging with a document that they believe preserves genuine ancient knowledge. The question is not whether you find the cosmological framework comfortable. The question is whether the pattern in the text matches the pattern you have observed. Let me continue. Taurus covers April 20th to May 20th. The first entity here is Ayudal. His function, he causes deafness. And I need to be precise about what deafness means in Solomon's spiritual warfare framework. It does not exclusively mean physical hearing loss, though it does not exclude it. In the context of the Hebrew scriptural tradition that Solomon was working within, deafness is a spiritual category. Isaiah chapter 43, verse 8. Bring forth the people who are blind, though they have eyes, and who are deaf, though they have ears. That is not describing physical disability. That is describing a specific spiritual condition. The inability to hear what God is saying even when the words are being spoken. The ears receive the sound. The inner man does not receive the meaning. And Udal's specific assignment is to the early Taurus decan, the person born in late April who has sat in churches and prayer meetings and Bible studies for years and has heard everything that was said and can describe it afterward, but has never had it penetrate, never had it become living conviction, never had the Word of God move from the outer ear to the inner life. The remedy? Uriel, drive out Ayudal. The second Taurus entity is Svendonael. He causes inflammation of the parotid glands and swelling of the tonsils, the throat, the voice, the instrument through which you speak truth, declare covenant, pray with authority. And here the pattern sharpens. Udal attacks the ears, the ability to receive divine instruction. Svendonael attacks the throat, the ability to transmit it. Think about what that combination produces. A person who cannot hear what God is saying and cannot speak what God has given them. Spiritually deaf and spiritually mute. And they may be standing in a congregation every week, appearing to function normally, while underneath, the instruments of covenant communication have both been compromised. The remedy? Sabriel. The third Taurus entity is Sfandar. He introduces trembling of the shoulders and nerve paralysis. In Hebrew priestly theology, the shoulders carry a specific covenantal significance. Exodus chapter 28, Vayihint, verse 12. Aaron's priestly garment had 2 onyx stones set in gold filigree on the shoulder pieces. Each stone bore the names of 6 of the 12 tribes of Israel. The high priest of Solomon's temple literally carried all of Israel on his shoulders before God. The shoulders are the place of covenant responsibility, of what you are called to carry on behalf of others, and Sfandar's specific function is to introduce paralysis into that exact place, not paralysis of the limbs in general. The shoulders, the place of spiritual bearing. Have you seen this in someone? The person born in May who is clearly gifted, clearly called, who understands what they should do, who knows what God placed on them. And yet, at the critical moments, when they should act, when they should step forward and carry the weight, something freezes, some invisible resistance. Sfandar. The remedy, Ariel. For those born in the Taurus window, the attack pattern is communication. The ears stripped of their capacity to receive, the voice stripped of its authority, the shoulders stripped of their ability to carry what God placed on them. Incoming grace blocked. Outgoing authority blocked. Carried responsibility paralyzed. Solomon named all 3 of these. He wrote the remedy for each one in the same sentence. Now Gemini, May 21st to June 21st. And this is where I need to slow down. Because what I am about to show you is the reason I stayed still in the SOAS library for a long time after I found it. And the reason it took me nearly 20 years to speak about it publicly. The first Gemini entity is called Belbel. Solomon asked him, "What do you do?" The answer in the Greek text, the original language of McCown's critical edition, is rendered in most translations with 5 words. He distorts the hearts and minds of men. I want you to read that again. And I want you to notice what it does not say. It does not say he attacks the body. It does not say he causes illness or physical suffering. It does not say he damages relationships or finances or health. Hearts and minds, the innermost faculties, the seat of love and the seat of thought, the 2 instruments by which a human being knows what is true and chooses to move toward it. Belbel does not attack from outside. He attacks the interior of the man or woman. He makes the inner compass crooked. He makes what was love feel like obligation. What was conviction feel like? Confusion. What was spiritual clarity feel like? Song. And the person walking around with an active Belbel assignment looks completely normal from outside. They are functioning. They are present. They are engaged. But from the inside, something is wrong with the interior orientation. The compass is off by degrees, not by poles. Not enough to be obvious. Enough to make every significant decision land slightly to the left of where it should. I was born in late May. I found that entry in the autumn of 2004. And I sat back in my chair in the SOAS library and stayed very still for a long time. Because 3 years earlier, in 2001, when I was 30 years old, I had gone through a period I could only describe to my aunt in Port Harcourt as a fog that would not lift. For 3 months, my thinking was affected. My spiritual life went flat and silent. My emotional responses felt slightly wrong. Not catastrophically wrong. Not in ways I could name to anyone. but subtly displaced, as if the inner man's compass had been pulled a few degrees from true north. I could not identify what was doing it. My aunt prayed for me. It lifted after 3 months. Reading Belbel's description in 2004, at 43 years old, I understood for the first time what had come for me in 2001. This is the first time I have said that in any of these videos. I have spent years teaching Solomon's knowledge from the position of the scholar, the man who has read the manuscripts and explains what they mean. This entry made me something different. It made me a subject, a man who found his own birth decan in a 1st century catalog and recognized what he had been through. The recognition was not comfortable, but it was important, and it is why I can tell you with certainty, this is not abstract. This is operational. The remedy Solomon recorded for Belbel is the archangel Iaoth, spoken as a command. Iaoth, imprison Belbel. The other 2 Gemini entities complete the picture. Curtail attacks the gut, the bowels, and I want to be careful here because the modern reader will hear that as something minor. But in the Hebrew scriptural framework, the gut is not a minor organ. The bowels, the innards, are consistently used in the Hebrew Bible as the seat of deep compassion and discernment. 1 Kings chapter 3, verse 26. The mother of the living child felt compassion for her son, and the text describes it as her bowels yearning for him. Not metaphor. The Hebrews located deep knowing, the kind that bypasses argument and goes straight to truth. In the gut, Curtail's assignment is to attack that faculty, the discernment that sits below the mind and below the heart, the knowing that does not need to reason. And Metathiax attacks the kidneys. And again, this requires a pause, because in the Hebrew tradition, the kidneys are the seat of the deepest interior examination. Psalm 7 verse 9. O righteous God, who examines the minds and hearts. The word there is not the word for heart. In the original Hebrew, it is the word for kidneys, the innermost place that God examines when he tests what a person truly is, not what they profess, not what they perform, what they are at the level that cannot be faked. Metathiax attacks the filtration system, the ability to separate what belongs from what does not, to know truth from deception at the level beneath argument. For those born in the Gemini window, the deepest attack. Not one faculty, all 3 inner instruments simultaneously. Heart distortion, gut knowing compromised, innermost discernment disrupted, and the person with an active Gemini decan assignment does not always look spiritually oppressed. They may be articulate, capable, even gifted. But when it matters most, when they need to know what is true, Belbel has been in the room. Now I need to show you where this goes deeper. Because the question that should be forming in your mind right now is, if these 9 entities are assigned to the spring window, if they are documented, if the remedies exist, if Solomon found and recorded all of this, then why do the patterns persist? Why do families carry this generation after generation? The answer is in Exodus chapter 20, verse 5. And most people read straight past the part that matters. You shall not bow down to them, nor worship them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children to the 3rd and 4th generation. 3 words I want you to hold. First, iniquity, the Hebrew word avon. It does not simply mean sin. It carries the sense of something bent from its true form, something perverse, something twisted away from what it was designed to be. The same category of distortion that Belbel produces in hearts and minds. Second, visiting. This is not passive observation. The Hebrew word is paqad, to attend to reckon with, to superintend. an active mechanism, not a coincidence. Third, to the third and fourth generation. Now ask yourself this. If a grandfather born in late April, in the Aries Taurus border, had an active Ruax assignment that was never addressed, a mental barrenness that settled over him and was never broken, and he died carrying it, never having spoken the command Solomon documented, what did his daughter carry? What did his granddaughter inherit? Not through genetics, through spiritual assignment. The door that was opened in his decan and never closed is still standing open, and the entity that came through it recognized the family line, and it knows the season. This is the bloodline mechanism. This is why the same pattern repeats. Your grandmother's inability to hold her faith even when she tried. Your uncle's inexplicable mental fog. Your mother's voice, gifted, certain, full of what she knew, that somehow could never translate into lasting spiritual authority. They were not weak people. They were people whose decan door had been left open. And they did not have the name. They did not know the command. Solomon wrote it down because he understood the mechanism. And I want to tell you something about where else this knowledge survived. Because the Testament of Solomon is not the only place. In Yoruba tradition, and I have spent years in Nigeria studying these texts with the same care I brought to the ancient Near Eastern manuscripts. Every person is born with an Ori, a personal spiritual head, a pre-chosen identity that exists before birth. And the tradition identifies specific ajogun, adversarial forces, whose activity is calibrated to the circumstances of a person's birth. Not random, not distributed equally across all people. Calibrated. Some families carry heavier ajogun assignments than others. Some birth configurations attract particular adversarial attention. The Akan tradition of Ghana is structurally parallel. The Kra concept, protective and adversarial forces active at birth, operating in relationship to specific configurations of timing and origin. I want to be exact about what I am and am not claiming here. These traditions are not the same as Solomon's decan taxonomy. The frameworks are different. The languages are different. The cosmologies are different. But they are independent witnesses to the same foundational observation. The ancient world, across sub-Saharan Africa, across the Hellenistic Jewish synthesis of the 1st century, across traditions that had no communication with one another, arrived at the same conclusion. Birth timing carries spiritual assignment, and that assignment does not expire with the individual. It tracks the line. When your Yoruba great-grandmother performed protective ceremonies at the birth of a child, not as superstition, not as habit, but as deliberate spiritual architecture, she was operating from the same fundamental knowledge that Solomon encoded in chapter 18. The knowledge that the entrance of a new person into the world opens a door that specific forces move to occupy, and that the door can be sealed with knowledge, with authority, with the right words spoken correctly. She knew the principle. Solomon left the specific mechanism. And that is the piece that most families, in Africa, in the diaspora, in every part of the world where these patterns run, have been doing without. Not lacking faith, not lacking prayer, lacking the name, the specific command, the exact remedy Solomon documented for the specific entity in the specific decan. Now I need to address something directly. Because some of you have been praying for years over the pattern in your family. You have fasted, you have anointed, you have called the elders, and the pattern has lifted temporarily and returned, lifted and returned. And the question underneath that experience, the one that is difficult to say aloud, is, why isn't it working? The answer is in the structure of chapter 18's remedy system. Solomon did not record prayer as the remedy for these 9. He did not prescribe incense, not oil, not salt, not water, not fasting. He prescribed names, specifically the names of archangels, spoken not as requests, but as commands. Michael imprison Ruax, Gabriel imprison Barsaphael, Uriel imprison Aratosael, Uriel drive out Udal, Ariel bind Sfandar, Aios imprison Belbel. Listen to the grammar of those commands. There is no please. There is no if it is your will. There is no petition. This is the form of a royal legal command, issued by someone who holds delegated authority. And this is the piece that most of the church tradition has not taught. Solomon's system operates on a specific legal principle. God gave Solomon dominion over the spiritual forces he encountered. 1 Kings chapter 3. God appeared and said, "Ask for whatever you want." Solomon asked for wisdom, the wisdom to govern, and the governing authority he received extended over the entities that operate against human flourishing. He received the authority to interrogate them, to bind them, to issue commands in the names of the archangels appointed over them. And what Solomon received and documented, he left for every person who would come after him. When you speak Michael, imprison Ruax, you are not asking Michael to intervene. You are issuing the command that Solomon already established has authority to make an archangel act, not from your own authority, from the Solomonic authority that was delegated and documented and left in a first-century text that has survived intact for 2,000 years for precisely this moment. This is the difference between the prayer that lifts it temporarily and the command that breaks the assignment. Prayer asks God to act on your behalf. The Solomonic command exercises the authority God already delegated for exactly this type of situation. Both are valid. They are not competing, but they are doing different things. And the families who have been lifting the pattern temporarily through prayer without breaking the assignment permanently through commanded authority have been using the right heart with the wrong tool. Solomon left the right tool. It is in chapter 18. Let me give you the 3-step protocol, because this is what you are going to do tonight. Not someday. Tonight. Step 1. Identify your decan. March 21st to April 19th. You are in the Aries window. The 3 entities assigned to your birth season are Ruax, Barsaphael, and Aratosael. The attack pattern for your bloodline: mental barrenness, head pain, compromised spiritual sight. April 20th to May 20th. You are in the Taurus window. Your 3: Udal, Sfendoniel, Sfandar. Attack pattern: spiritual deafness, stripped voice, paralysis at the moment of covenant responsibility. May 21st to June 21st. You are in the Gemini window. Your 3: Belbel, Cortael, Metathiax. Attack pattern: heart and mind distortion, lost gut discernment, compromised innermost knowing. And if you know the birth months of your parents and grandparents, you now know the attack patterns that have been operating in your bloodline, possibly for 3 generations, possibly for 4. Step 2. Speak the archangel's name as command, not as prayer. The precise Solomonic form. Out loud, in the physical world, not silently, not in your mind. For Aries: Michael, imprison Ruax. Gabriel, imprison Barsaphael. Uriel, imprison Aratosael. For Taurus: Auriel, drive out Udal. Sabrael, bind Sfendoniel. Ariel, bind Sfandar. For Gemini: Iaioth, imprison Belbel. Speak the commands that apply to your birth season. Then speak the commands for your parents' seasons, for your grandparents. You have the authority, not because you earned it, because Solomon received it and documented it for this purpose, and the binding he established is still valid. Step 3. Seal with 3 declarations from Psalm 91, verse 11. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. This is the Archangel Commission. You are activating, in covenant language, the same authority structure Solomon used when he issued the commands. The angels are commissioned over you. This verse establishes it. Verse 2. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. This is the jurisdictional declaration. You are stating whose authority covers the space you have just cleared. Nothing moves back in uninvited. Verse 4. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge. This is the seal, the closing of the circuit. Identification, command, divine cover. 3 steps. 10 minutes if you do all of them carefully. This is what Solomon left for the springborn. Let me close with something I have been sitting with. You know that the spring window is the window of new life. March, April, May, June. The season when everything that was dormant pushes through ground that seemed sealed. The season of emergence. Solomon's system was not arbitrary. He did not organize his decan catalog by accident. He understood that the springborn carry something the other seasons do not. An orientation toward new beginnings, toward possibility, toward the kind of faith that insists on growth even when the conditions argue against it. And the entities assigned to that window know it. They target precisely this: the mind that could envision, the voice that could declare, the inner compass that could lead others out of confusion. The springborn are not targeted because they are weak. They are targeted because of what they carry when they are not. Solomon documented 9 entities in this window. He recorded their names, their attack patterns, and the exact commands that stopped them. He left all of it in a text that was copied and preserved and translated, and now exists in McCown's Critical Edition, available at any serious research library in the world. He did not hide it. He preserved it, because he understood that the springborn would need it, and he needed the knowledge to survive for the ones who were ready to receive it. I was born in late May. I found my decan in 2004. I understood what had come for me in 2001. And I understood what had come for my grandmother. And I understood the pattern in my family line. And I spoke the command. The binding Solomon established is still valid, 3,000 years after he first issued it. The archangel's name is still the name that stops the entity. Iaoth is still Iaoth. Michael is still Michael. Gabriel still answers. And your bloodline's pattern, inherited through Exodus 20, verse 5, through unbroken decan assignment across 3 or 4 generations, can stop tonight. Not because you are powerful enough to break it, because Solomon was, and he left the command in your hands. The spring window that marked your bloodline is also the window through which Solomon's remedy enters. It enters the same way the assignment does, through the name, spoken, with authority, with the full weight of what it is. Solomon found the entities in the spring window. He bound them. He left you the command. Speak it tonight. Sleep well. Or perhaps do not sleep just yet. You know the name of what has been targeting your line. Now you know the name that stops it.